Welcome to the Adam Does Movies podcast. I'm Adam, and on today's show, we're talking about the writers and actors strike that's going on right now. It's a bottle episode. It's a time capsule episode. Something that hopefully will not last very long. Hopefully it won't be relevant in just a month or so, and we can move on with our lives. I fear, and based on what I've read, that's not going to be the case, and this strike is going to be going for quite a while. Which is very unfortunate because as fans of movies, we want to see new stuff get created. We want to plop down tickets and go to new movies. My concern is 6 months from now, we're going to be getting a lot of repeats in the theaters. We're going to be getting that Jaws anniversary. We're going to be getting another, James Cameron's going to throw his crap back into the theaters for the 4th or 5th time. And while it is fun to watch some of that stuff again on the big screen, I want new stuff as well. And so what's happening right now in Hollywood is the writers and actors now join them a couple weeks later. Actually, I think they joined them a couple months later. They're all pissed. They're mad because they don't feel they're getting their just desserts. They don't feel like they're getting rewarded properly for the work they're putting in. I pulled up an article from the Los Angeles Times because it's the first thing that showed up on Google for me. I checked it out. It seemed, pretty concise, has a lot of information. And for someone like you that might not know much about the writer's strike, the actor's strike, everything that goes into it, you're in the same boat as me. All I know is there's not movies being made. In the future, we're going to have a lull. We're going to have a downtime. I remember in 2008, 2009, somewhere around that time frame, this happened before. Writers were on strike. Lost was on hiatus. Heroes, The Office, things like that were going untouched for quite a while. All right, let's look at this. I'm just going to kind of read verbatim off of this article, and then I'm going to give thoughts and opinions as it goes, because I have some. And the reason I am bringing this up is several people have reached out and said, Adam, you haven't really covered this. You've alluded to it. You've mentioned it, but I want to hear your thoughts. All right, so this is an article by Wendy Lee and Meg James. We got a double team, and this was updated August 4th. So it was just a couple days ago. All right, representatives of the Writers Guild of America and the major studios met Friday afternoon for the first time in 3 months, but there was no signs of a breakthrough in the months-long labor standoff that has upended Hollywood. Hopes were raised in the entertainment industry when the WGA said it received a request from Carol Lombardini, president of the Alliance of Motion Pictures, the AMP, and television producers, to meet on Friday to discuss negotiations. The alliance bargains on behalf of Walt Disney Company, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Netflix, Apple TV, and other media companies and streamers. This is actually a very interesting thing. So yes, the AMPTP, Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers, are essentially a middleman between the big studios and the actors/writers. Their job, from what I understand, and it makes sense, is to negotiate for the least amount possible, to give them nothing, but take from them everything, to quote Leonidas from 300, a phenomenal film. They're basically like kind of mob bosses. You want to come to us with the proposal? They're going to break their legs, basically. And that's what has been happening. Actors, writers come to the table to negotiate. They have their reps as well. Usually there's a push and pull situation, but what's been happening behind closed doors is there's pushing and no pulling at all. They're trying to give a little bit, and what happens is you're supposed to counter offer. Like, let's say, hey, we want 5% bumps on our streaming revenue. And then the guys over there at the AMPTP say, how about 2%? And then they would meet in the middle, realistically, at around 3.5, something like that. But there is no counter offer. It's a one-way street. So everything's just shut down until AMPT, blah, 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 whatever it's called, starts to play ball. All right, let's go on. We won't prejudge what's to come, the WGA negotiating committee says. But playbooks die hard. So far, the companies have wasted months on their same failed strategy. They have attempted time and time again through anonymous quotes in the media to use scare tactics, rumors, and lies to weaken our resolve. In response, AMPTP called the WGA's bargaining committee, God, all these acronyms, rhetoric unfortunate. They said that's unfortunate. Because the AMPTP doesn't really give a shit. They don't have... Again, they're just they're insurance agents, you know? You want to go through Geico, you can have a free agent that sells you the insurance policy, but at the end of the day, that person is still calling Geico, or they're having you call them. This isn't a Geico ad. I don't even have Geico. The strike has hurt thousands of people in the industry, and we take that very seriously, AMPTP said in a statement Thursday. Our only playbook is getting people back to work. I don't buy that. I mean, I buy that you want to get them back to work, but again, these people are representing massive companies. Disney, Warner Brothers, Apple. Their job, first and foremost, is to keep making these guys a ton of money and giving nothing in return to these actors and writers. That's the goal. I mean, that's the dream, really. But sources close to the negotiations who were not authorized to comment said that Friday's meetings did not go well and that there was little progress in resolving deep differences. The session ended with the parties agreeing to go back to their representative camps to evaluate options. Yeah, I'm sure they did. What else do we have here? In an email to members late Friday evening, the WGA accused the alliance of violating a press blackout and said it was unwilling to address key guild demands. I like the word guild. It's so fancy, so powerful. Such as the preservation of the writer's room or success-based residuals. I have read up on this. I've heard about this. The writer's room thing, what's going on? I kind of wish the article went into some of the things. You know, let me move on through this article, and if it doesn't touch on some of the demands that the actors and writers want, I will fill in some of the gaps, because I have been researching this and studying this so that I could properly talk about it a little bit from a basic common man's, point of view. I am not in a guild. I am not in a, an elite group. I'm not in a GA of any kind. But I can still read and still kind of follow up with this stuff. Okay, fighting a labor battle on two fronts, actors joined writers on picket lines 3 weeks ago. It is increasingly costly for the major media companies, which also face pressure to resolve a conflict that has hammered Los Angeles' high-profile entertainment economy. LA Mayor Karen Bass called Friday's meeting an encouraging development. Oh, well, that's nice. The economic, however you want to say that, conditions of the entertainment industry are changing, and we must react and evolve to this challenge, Bass said in a statement. It is critical that this gets resolved immediately so that Los Angeles gets back on track, and I stand ready to personally engage with all the stakeholders in a way possible to help get this done. Writers went on strike May 2nd. They're seeking increased compensation, a larger share of residuals from streaming platforms, and regulations over the use of artificial intelligence, among other issues. That's right, Skynet's real, people. It's really stupid right now, but Skynet's real. They'll probably kill themselves before they kill any of us, but it's happening. The AI gods are being created as we speak. All right, the article continues. I didn't picket for over 3 months just for incremental change, said showrunner Mark Guggenheim, who was picketing outside the Walt Disney Studios lot in Burbank on Friday. We voted for a strike because we're hoping for systematic change, and I think writers are willing to stay out on the picket line as long as it takes to get that systematic change. Kind of a redundant phrase, but that's all right. Screenwriter Joshua Allen Griffith, who was helping organize the picket outside Sony Pictures in Culver City, said guild leaders have been careful to try to temper expectations of members. I notice my camera's going a little crazy. Let me lock in. Hopefully that fixes whatever's happening right now. It's just kind of going in and out of focus. It's really having a hard time understanding what's going on with the lighting. All right, let's keep going. I've been telling my team members that past behavior predicts future behavior, and that there is a high possibility that talks will break down again, said Griffith, a WGA strike captain, whose credits include Hulu's series Only Murders in the Building. I didn't care for that show. I tried it. I love Steve Martin. Selena Gomez is a treasure. Celebrate her entire catalog of music. Can't keep my hands to myself. I mean, a lot of good songs by her. I just didn't care for that. Martin Sheen, I think, is in that too. No, that's not right. Martin Sheen. Martin Short. Yeah, Martin Short's in that. He's fantastic. I just didn't find the show very, very exciting, but maybe it got better after season 1 or 2. I don't know. It's important to have hope, and we have reason to have hope. But it would be a real shame if our expectations were too high, Griffith said. I hope we will continue to stick together despite any disappointments. Well, spoiler, there's going to be disappointments from everyone. When negotiations work, no one really wins at the end. No one gets everything they want. That's okay. That's what there's no win-win-win scenario, Michael Scott. There's got to be a push and a pull. Some expected the alliance might first reach out to SAG-AFTRA, whose members have been on strike since July 14th over similar issues. But after SAG President Fran Drescher, really? Fran Drescher's? Wait, Fran Drescher, isn't that the nanny? This cannot be the same person. Let me Google this. Oh my God, Fran Drescher's like the spokesperson? What? SAG-AFTRA President Fran Drescher? How did it... What? I had no idea. Okay. But after SAG-AFTRA President Fran Drescher's fiery remarks to rally her members last month, media executives felt that emotions were running too high to immediately restart talks. According to people familiar with the matter who were not authorized to comment, I just can't get over Fran Drescher being the voice, the leader of SAG-AFTRA. That might be why the communication's breaking down. I know some people like her voice. I myself would have a hard time having a conversation with her. So throwing her in a room with other people and negotiating contracts, and she's like, nah, no, I don't like this. That would be tough. She's probably not even in the rooms for these, but let's continue. Maybe the temperature is a little too warm in terms of that relationship right now, said David Smith, a professor of economics at Pepperdine University's Graziadio Business School. What? Pepperdine University's Graziadio? I don't know how to say that. Maybe that needs to cool off a little bit before they're going to be anxious to talk to SAG-AFTRA. SAG-AFTRA negotiators also were furious over a remark made by a top. I don't care about any of that. Let's see. I'm trying to get some more information. This is all just like a lot of gobbledygook. The sides have also wrangled over streaming viewership transparency and the payment of higher residuals for successful streaming shows. That issue continues to be a key sticking point, the person said. Company executives have been troubled by SAG-AFTRA's demand that actors on popular shows be paid 2% of a streamer's revenue. The proposal is unworkable, people on the AMPTP side have said. These names suck. Pointing out that there are plenty of shows that don't work. They also have rejected SAG-AFTRA's suggestion that payments be based on data from research firm Parrot Analytics, noting that Parrot doesn't measure viewership, only interest or impressions in a program. Squawk! It's not making enough money! Squawk! Thanks, Parrot. For their part, SAG-AFTRA negotiators have said they are not wedded to Parrot, but they made the suggestion as a way to open dialogue on having some third party determine which shows are most popular. There's a lot of third party stuff going on with these negotiations, I know that much. Actor Blake Worrell said that he hopes the talks can resume. I don't think anyone wants this to continue, Worrell said Friday at the picket outside Sony, but at the end of the day, this is about equal rights, fair pay, and being recognized for our work. All right, well, that's from the Los Angeles Times. People aren't happy. I listened to a podcast recently with Adam Conover, the Adam Ruins Everything guy. Used to be on College Humor back in the day. I loved College Humor. That show, that channel on YouTube was hilarious. Anyway, he was talking about the demands and what they're fighting for, and a lot of it seemed reasonable. However, I was also kind of looking at it from the other side of the other angle, reading the tea leaves of the future, seeing how the business has totally changed. And the model is a little wonky now. So what Adam said was he used to have a show on cable TV. It was Adam Ruins Everything. It was on, I don't know what channel, it doesn't really matter. He was basically saying it was like one of the bottom tier shows. It wasn't seen by a ton of people. It was on at a weird time. However, he and his crew, after, whenever their paychecks would come in, their residual checks. So actors and writers get an upfront payment, whatever is negotiated by their, by them or by someone on their behalf. They get that big amount of money, and that's to kind of hold them over throughout the shooting process, whether it's a 6-month contract or a 2-year contract. They might be in the writer's room, which we'll get to. They might be acting. It doesn't matter. But then on top of that, there is also usually residuals that come. I think they have to have some sort of residual that comes from these projects. It could be pennies. It could be pennies on the dollar. It could be like 1 penny for every 1,000 impressions. I don't know. Like, it can get extremely stupid. I saw some actors posting residual checks they got on their time on Disney shows. Like, I think one of the guys was the dad on Lizzie McGuire. And he took a photo of a check he got from Disney for $0.00. Disney actually lost money just sending him a check for nothing. How insulting, too. I mean, did they really have to send the check out? Can we not change something in the system so that if the guy isn't making even a penny, we don't waste the time? Hell, if the guy is only making 50 cents, maybe we just batch that in with a future payment, or we ask them if there's like a threshold to send the check out. I mean, come on. $0.00? Are you out of your mind? Disney's probably got someone in the back going, okay, quarterlies are up for the most part, but in our acting department, we're losing like 30 grand because we keep sending all these checks out for $0.00 to a bunch of randos from old TV shows in the 90s and early 2000s. Half the cast of Raven-Symoné is getting $0 and a stick of gum. We just can't afford to keep sending these checks out. We're losing money. We're losing money, Disney. We're losing money, Mickey. Oh, okay, fucker, then stop sending them out. Mickey's a douchebag. Adam was going on, though, about the writer's room and how it's trying to get eliminated by a lot of these big companies. Once streaming became... Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. This is a one-man show. I get a little distracted. I apologize. I was in the middle of making a point before I went on my little tangent. Anyway, he had a show called Adam Ruins Everything. He would get these residual checks for like $30,000. A great amount of money to get every, I don't know how often these come in, if it's quarterly or yearly or seasonally or annually. Some of those are probably redundant. But he said he and his small staff would all get good chunks of money like this because the show was on cable, it had a lot of reruns, and there are ads going in front of all those shows. Every time you watch something on cable, it's usually a 22 to 24 minute TV show, unless it's one of the hour ones. Then you're talking like 46 minutes. And that other time is made up for the other 7 or 8 minutes of commercials. So you'd have 2.5 to 3 minutes of commercials, 6 or 7 minutes of the show, back to commercials, watch, rinse, repeat. I know most people know this, but I have children, 14 and 11, and they barely know what a commercial is. They certainly don't know what a traditional commercial schedule looks like because they've never really watched cable before. They grew up without the quote-unquote cord that you're cutting, even though we all have cords still. It's a stupid thing. His point was he was being paid well. He was being paid fairly, he thought, for what he was doing. Then he got a show on Netflix a couple years back, and he just received his first paycheck. His point here, though, was Netflix is seen by millions and millions of more people. His show was watched more. It's in front of a much larger audience of people all around the world. And his first residual paycheck was $500. He went from 30,000 on one show on a kind of like smaller scale channel that didn't get a lot of eyeballs to a massive, Netflix, one of the biggest companies right now, has the biggest app streaming service right now, and he's getting $500. And he thinks that's unfair. I see his point, and I raise him this. The model has changed. We dealt with this in the music industry as well. Remember Napster, kids? Remember LimeWire, fam? Remember some of those great torrenting tools you could use? Then the Pirate Bay came along for movies and music, and you could just download whatever you wanted. Well, musicians and record labels were not prepared for this when the internet came out, and then these tools started becoming readily available. Metallica's suing Napster. Other bands are pissed off and losing some street cred in the process, but they're trying to protect their work and their property, and I saw both sides of that as well. So the music studios had to drastically change, and they finally pivoted to streaming platforms such as Spotify, such as Apple Music, and things like that. And artists, I'm pretty positive, did not come out well in that. Musicians took massive hits. I don't know if they ever recovered. I think they just pivoted and found ways through merch, through concerts, and through probably coming out with more singles on Spotify and that, because it's not so much about albums anymore as it is about just making one or two hits that you can get a lot of plays off of. And you see that when new music comes out. Oftentimes, I have a heavy sigh. Again, I'm from the generation where you release an album that has at least 9 to 13 songs. My kids don't give a crap if it's just a single. They like the singles. And of course, I have playlists and stuff that I add them to. But I just get excited for a full playlist of music, brand new music from an artist. It's more exciting if it's a catalog, 9 to 10, 11 songs. That's great. My point is, music industry changed years back, and now we're seeing it with cable TV to streaming. This was bound to happen eventually, but man, oh man, is it a nightmare. Adam has a point. He lost a ton of money. He was relying on bigger residual checks. So now what is he going to do? He's going to go work at Wendy's part-time. This is a thing that people say like my wife, for instance, doesn't know much about this. And obviously, she was a teacher for many years. It's hard. They don't get paid shit. They're also part of a union, but they don't, it's just a different world. They have to work because these are blue-collar jobs. And you need to put food on the table. I have always worked multiple jobs my entire life. But I feel, and I should say, YouTube is garbage as well from payout perspectives. I think a lot of these apps are too. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if unionizing some of this stuff in the future was a possibility, because the YouTubes and the Twitches and all these different platforms really are reliant on content from creators coming out, and they are freaking taking a ton of it. A ton of it. Every super chat, every sticker that someone pays for, YouTube takes 40 to 60%. I can't even remember the breakdown, but it is wild how much money these services take from you before you get your hands in the money bin. And that's really what's going on with the streaming services. Now, the big issue here that Adam he kind of alludes to in this conversation, but he doesn't go that far in, is there aren't ads on a lot of these streaming services across the board. You can go to the lowest tier on Netflix now, and they have ad service shit, but they didn't always used to be that way. I think there's a more recent one, and Peacock's the same, and I'm sure a lot of them have an ad-based, version. But this isn't like cable TV where you had one option. Everyone watches the same commercials, unless you're TiVoing stuff. But either way, somehow that commercial is being accounted for. That viewer is being accounted for, and the money is good for all parties involved. Well, a lot of people pay for premium versions of Netflix, of YouTube, of things of that nature, and so they're not seeing ads. So there's nothing for the streaming company to give to the individual actor or writer. That said, streaming services also appear to be making stupid amounts of money. Even though we get reports that Netflix took a loss this quarter, or Netflix hasn't been profitable in years, or whatever, but the CEO is making, billions of dollars, and Netflix doesn't pay any taxes at all. Same with Amazon and a lot of these other companies. They find ways to get around it. It's pretty remarkable. And the reason a lot of these companies are quote unquote not making money is because they are investing stupid amounts of money into projects to keep more people coming to their streaming services. That's why we have Red Notice with Gal Gadot and Dwayne Johnson. That's why Netflix had Adam Sandler for like a 4 or 6 movie deal. That's why Paramount Plus got the South Park guys to make a couple South Park movies. This is all happening to get people onto their platforms because they're all fighting for our viewership. They're all fighting for our attention. And so now who's caught in the middle of all this shakeup? The actors and the writers. The point I was getting at before was Adam can't just go work at Wendy's. He can't have 2 jobs very easily like someone who's a teacher and has the summer off. Or someone like me who's a web developer and designer who also loves talking movies and has a hobby that makes money as well for the family. A guy like Adam, or a different writer in Hollywood, or a different actor in Hollywood, has to be on the clock, at the beck and call constantly. These aren't 8-hour work days. Sometimes they're 14-hour work days. There's no consistency. And often they're burning the midnight oil. Or they might be between jobs, but the next one's right around the corner. So yes, they could pick up an odds and ends thing. They could go work at a Starbucks for a couple of weeks as a barista, but then boom, an offer falls on their table. Or there's a casting call, there's an audition. They gotta be out at these things constantly. They're on the move for the next gig. It would be an incredibly stressful position to be in, a very stressful situation all around. And that gets even more magnified now with all the new stuff coming out. I tried to talk about the writer's room before. I'm getting to it now. The writer's room is a place, is a sanctuary where writers go to talk about the episodes coming out. They collab. They go there every day on the job. In shows like The Office, for instance, a lot of the writers were also actors on the show. Ryan Howard, Mindy, Toby, these were all writers on the show. So when they weren't acting in scenes, they would go right around the corner into the writer's room, which was one of the offices off the side of the camera, and they would talk about scenes that are working. They would change things on the fly, sometimes give different notes and character direction, and this was just a very collaborative thing that streaming companies are desperately trying to get rid of. Because why pay a bunch of writers to collab and come up with great new ideas that make the show better when you can just pay one guy who's the showrunner, who's also maybe directing or producing or acting in it? You give him all of this responsibility and all of the pressure and all of the work. And then when it's just one dude, you can also kind of push that person around. That's the end game here, as far as the writers see it. From a writer perspective, getting rid of that writer's room is step 1. Step 2 is you start really pigeonholing the showrunner. The one dude that's doing the writing, you start to veer where he goes creatively, or you put him on the grindstone. You say, hey, this stuff has to get out. You better start working 16 hours a day if you want to make your deadlines. Miserable. Absolutely miserable. It's already been going on. And so they're fighting to try to keep this from happening in the future because the writer's room is going to go away altogether. That's one of the big things. Obviously, writers want more pay. I pointed out the Adam example. Going to streaming took a huge dip in revenue. there has to be a way to give them a bit more change. Because as I said, these companies may claim they're losing money, but they're also not. The CEOs and the upper execs are making tons of cash. They have tons of cash. They're just pumping it into other properties. They can rethink their strategies, and I'm sure they can come up with a way to bump up those percentage points for the writers and actors involved, or come up with some sort of, payout structure that seems more realistic than what they currently are offering. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm also not the one in charge of Netflix or Amazon or any of these places. I just, I sympathize obviously I sympathize with the workers. I don't really have any good feelings for people that are making billions of dollars. That's not really the hill I'm going to die on. And I certainly don't have any ill will towards actors, actresses trying to get what they think they deserve. There's a lot of crap being pumped out onto these streaming services. And it could be avoided if they maybe didn't spend so much on the crap and they invested in the actors and the writers that are doing the work. And I think the reason why we are seeing, in theaters even, a dip in quality from a writing standpoint and even an acting standpoint sometimes is because these guys are burnt out. Just like everyone else in the world, and you've seen it, we've all seen it, people seem so much more depressed now. Because of social media, we see how the better half lives. We see the lavish lifestyle they've been given, a lot of Nepo babies out there that have had fortunes handed down to them. Even a lot of actors working today didn't earn their way in through official channels, putting in the blood, sweat, and tears like someone like Stallone or Schwarzenegger or Bruce Willis, or I think Bruce Willis, I would imagine Bruce Willis, or a lot of kind of the actors we thought were awesome back in the day. They all now have kids that are just getting into act. They're just in because of the name. And that's across every spectrum, of course. You can't really get too upset about it. But my point is, we have to find a way to make this streaming stuff work. And I think the big way is to pull back on some of the bullshit that they're pumping out. Disney Plus is embarrassing. Disney has done such an impressive job of ruining their own brand over the years. It's honestly remarkable. Pre-Star Wars, Disney and Pixar were synonymous with the greatest as far as filmmaking goes. And I'm talking about family filmmaking, They're not like the Fight Clubs or the Matrix or Jaws. They're doing the Frozens and the Tangolds and the Bambis and the Lion Kings. But they were good films. And even their live action stuff back in the day, Iron Will, and did they do Sister Act? I don't think they did Sister Act, but whatever. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, things like that. They put work into them. They tried to make them good. And now you see Disenchanted 2. The whole thing looks like it's shot in front of a green screen in the course of two weekends. You got Hocus Pocus 2. I don't think anyone really liked that film. Home Alone 17 with the new actor, and it's just fucking terrible. The quality has gone so down, it's stupid at Disney. And it's because it's churn and burn over there. Pay very little, get stuff done, and we don't have time to really think about pay plans or schedules for people. We are completely focused on winning this race. This is the Blu-ray versus HD DVD scenario all over again. All these streaming platforms are like chickens with their heads cut off, running around trying to win a battle that's unwinnable. Other things that they're concerned about is obviously AI. I mentioned that before. That's the big scary giant in the room, ChatGPT, really freaking out writers, and not for the way that you'd think. From what I've read, writers aren't even concerned about ChatGPT taking over their jobs because it's stupid. And it really is. I've used it before to just throw YouTube descriptions in for the keywords and so I don't have to write a paragraph of bullshit to tell you to watch my movie about Meg 2. I actually didn't use ChatGPT on that one. That was just an example. But the stuff that comes out is so archaic. It's so juvenile. It's embarrassing. And will it get better? Of course, it will get better. It'll get more sophisticated. But we're talking, it's going to be a very long time before it makes anything even remotely decent as far as a screenplay is concerned. What they are concerned about, though, is Hollywood using that as an example to kind of, pay actors and writers less by saying, hey, listen, we got a service right here, ChatGTP. He can do the job, or she can do the job, whatever I want this robot to be. I don't need you anymore. Or maybe you're just like a supervisor, an overseer, a product manager. You can just look at what it's doing and make a couple clarificational notes. Or you can tell it what to write, give it a description of what you want, and it can spit out the rest. We have our own proprietary version of this, Disney GTP Plus. You're going to be working off of that. Okay? Tell Mickey what you want. Mickey will make it happen. That's the magic of Disney, you son of a bitch. Your check's at the front door. It's a one-time payment. You're welcome. Another thing I heard and I've read, and I believe it to be true, which is just sad to say, is that there is a whole slew of, when you think about actors and the whole actors strike, most people go, well, they're already millionaires. Boo-hoo. They're not getting paid. You're talking about a very, very small fraction of actors that are millionaires. There are a lot of starving actors or actors that are just making ends meet, or even actors that are living comfortably, but they're not making millions because they live in California or some rich-ass place, but they're getting by fine. And these are jobs like stagehands or, boom operators or camera crew, or a big acting one that often goes unnoticed are the background extras. There are people that do this full time. They're just background extras in scenes, and they go from project to project on TV shows. You might see them eating some pasta salad in the background of an episode of Friends. Background actors are a huge part of the industry, obviously, and they should be appreciated, respected, and treated with care. But they're not. Studios are proposing this idea. They're floating this around. Hey, why don't you come in for an afternoon? We'll scan your ass, your face, every part of your body, and then we'll hand you a check. It'll be a decent sized check because it's going to cover the rest of your existence. Then we can use your likeness in anything we want, even after you die. We'll just plop you in. We'll just CG you in the background, deep fake you, do whatever we have to with the technology we have available. It's all going to be built by computers. Everything's useless now. Everything's an algorithm. Everything's a conveyor belt property. How depressing. The whole point of films and music and entertainment in general is to see people create things. Marvel at the acting, marvel at the writing, at the visuals, at the beautiful sets, at the props, everything that's crafted by hand, whether on a computer or otherwise. But to now have it so fake and artificial, having AI start building all this stuff out, populating it, loses its mass, it loses its magic, it loses its luster, it loses its sheen. Charlie, I don't like it. I don't like it. Of course, I favor the actors and the writers when I hear stuff like this. That's like a horror show. They're not going to get what they want, that's for damn sure, but they should be able to fight for the future, and that's, from what I can gather, they're doing. That's what they're all about, is trying to save their ass for 10 years down the road when some jackass gets into a corporate position and he says, hey, do we really need actors for this? I feel like I can plop some in from a program, right? We can just animate these guys. We can use deep fake technology on the faces, on the voices. The background music can be generated automatically. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. We've got a picture. We got a bunch of pissed off people in the audience too, because that's not going to fly. At least not for this guy. I like movies too much to see it go such a miserable direction. It's the same way it's the same thing with everything though, really. It loses such an appeal to me. It loses such charm when I know what I'm looking at isn't real. I brought this up a couple weeks ago just to like put a bow on this whole thing. There's a scene in Now You See Me Too, which I've never actually watched because why would I? Where they're breaking out of some situation. I saw this clip and I just laughed my ass off because Dave Franco, he has a card get handed to him and then he like slides it across his shoulder and it goes down the other side and he flicks it across the room to another guy, to Woody Harrelson, who then plops it behind his back and it comes out his mouth or wherever the hell he puts it, and it looks so fake. The card is clearly not there. It was animated in post. Decently done, but for sure fake. The movie scene loses all of the excitement it has, all of the fun mystery of how they're doing it, because we know how they're doing it. They're not. It's being animated in. They're just making motions. Like, okay, director, where's it going to be? I just want to go like this. Just want to pop it like this, and the card's going to come down the arm. Got it. That's not interesting. And that's essentially what Hollywood, at least some people in some studios, are thinking about maybe doing going forward with everything. Let's make none of it interesting. And then all of it becomes crippling disappointment. All right, those are my thoughts on the writer and actor strike. I'm sure I missed about 1,000 things. I know it was all over the place, but this is a big topic. It's a complicated topic, and it's one that clearly I'm not fluent in. I did try to do a bunch of research before doing the podcast, though, to not sound like a total jackass. I hope I gave you a little bit of education and knowledge on it. Maybe changed some of your perspective if you thought that the whole thing was just bullshit and you don't agree and then these people are greedy. There very well be some of that. But I think for the most part, actors want to act. They want to work. They want to be in front of the spotlight. Believe me, that's their entire purpose in life, is to get in front of the camera. And not being in front of the camera, I guarantee, is killing a lot of them. And writers want to write. They don't want to be picketing. Nobody wants to be picketing outside. That's miserable work. That's just such a waste of time. So those are my thoughts. Please let me know if you have any, big hot takes on this. Put them in the comments if you're on YouTube. If you're watching on Spotify or listening, I guess, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I appreciate it. Share it around, even though I stumble through all of the endings of this. I like to think that some of it's at least a little bit coherent. And if you really like what I'm doing, I'm on Patreon at patreon.com/AdamDoesMovies. They, of course, take some money from me as well because I'm using their service. That's fair. Whatever. Everyone takes. Everyone takes from the creator, damn it. When is it going to be enough for them? But you can support the channel there. There's a $1 tier, a $5, a $20, a $30. There's lots of ways. YouTube's the same way. There's a join button you can access. There's a $1 tier, a $30, and it's a great way to help support small creators like myself who, believe it or not, do write out some of my episodes. I do these roast videos. They're very fun. I do them every week. I got a Wonder Woman 1984 on the hopper for this week. It's an 11-page script. I'm not part of SAG-AFTRA. I can still do this. Okay, I'm not in a union. They don't want me. At least not yet. Hopefully someday. All right, thanks again for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.